Welcome to the very first round of the 2024 Northern Talent Cup, the stepping stone to stardom for young riders from Northern and Central European countries. Over the next 4.5 months, 24 riders hailing from 10 different countries will race around the continent at 5 different venues and across 7 rounds in a bid to succeed Rocco Sesler as the next winner of the Northern Talent Cup and propel their careers front wheel first along the road to MotoGP. It's all change in 2024 with a new motorcycle provider, a new tyre supplier, and only one of the top 5 finishers from last season's standards returning again this year. Testing at the Oschersleben earlier in the month featured a rookie at the top of the timesheets, 5 inside the top 8, and 15 riders within 1 single second. So to put it quite bluntly, hedge your bets for this one because absolutely anything could happen. The 2024 Northern Talent Cup starts here. Good afternoon from the Netherlands for this 5th and final race of the Pirelli Dutch Round. 4 different championships have graced the legendary tarmac of the TT Circuit Assen throughout the day, and the final spot on the schedule is for the very first race of the 2024 Northern Talent Cup. Once again, the European-based series opens its campaign alongside the World Superbike paddock, and once again, it is at the TT Circuit. But that's where the comparisons with last year end, really. Rocco Sesler, Lennox Pomara, Julius Frelsen, your top 3 from last year, have all moved on to other international series for 2024, leaving a huge hole at the front of the field that many riders will be eager to slip into in this first race of the season. On the technical side, the KTMs of previous seasons have been replaced by a whole grid of Honda NSF 250Rs, the same model used in the European Talent Cup, and you can get a quick glimpse of that as they roll through pit lane for a second sighting lap here, given the conditions that we've had all day here at the TT Circuit Assen. It's also not the only change on the technical side, because for the very first time these riders will be racing on Pirelli tyres rather than Dunlops. My name is Anthony Nelson, and alongside me is the marathon man of the commentary booth today, Steve English. And Steve, with all action you've called today, I won't give any spoilers, it's been a pretty hectic day here in the Netherlands. A lot of unpredictable races given the situations that we've seen here at the TT Circuit Assen. This might even still be the most unpredictable one of them all.
Yeah, the weather we've had all the way through today has been up and down, to say the least. And for the Northern Talent Cup riders, this is one of the tricky moments of the season. We always see at the start of the year for the NTC riders is difficult, because you come to Assen, we're now just having spots of rain on the commentary box window. Thereafter seeing an incredibly exciting superbike race, a super sport race where riders were on different tyres and trying to come through the field. And now they need to make their decisions. How hard do you want to push? What are the conditions like? And what are you able to do out there? The wind has picked up as well. The temperatures dropped down a little bit. It's just tricky conditions for all these riders right now.
Without spoiling anything for any of the viewers who are tuning in now to the Northern Talent Cup live and are waiting to watch the World Superbike and World Supersport and Supersport 300 races later on, just to give a bit of context, we essentially haven't had a single dry race or a single wet race today. It's been a bit of both in every single one and every single lap that we've had here. So many changeable conditions, and those conditions are so difficult even for the most experienced riders that we have on the grid. These riders are 14, 15, 16 for the most part. This is, for a lot of them, the very first time that they will face something like this.
Yeah, and the challenge is also increased by the fact that you're here in front of a lot of your heroes, Toprak Razgatlioglu, Jonathan Ray, Alvaro Bautista, whoever you want to look at. And this is a chance for you to go out there and make a name for yourself. And I think it's one of those situations where for a lot of the riders and the teams, this is where you need to just keep a cool head, focus on the job at hand. It's a 14-lap race here, so it is a long race here for the Northern Talent Cup riders, and you've just got to make sure that you're able to keep yourself in that battle all the way through.
We've seen our top 3 as we went along for this second sighting lap of the riders. It is 3 rookies on the front row of the grid, and that's been basically the big story of the off-season for this Northern Talent Cup, is that a lot of rookies have come in and have immediately been fast in any sort of condition, even in testing. You are seeing now your race 1 starting grid here with T.S. Wenzel, Alessandro Binder, the 2 Kiefer Racing riders in 1 and 2. That's a name which a lot of you will probably be familiar with from their time in the MotoGP paddock. And Tobias Kitzbichler, apologies, in 3rd position. Also also a rookie, although he did compete in the final round of the 2023 season and snatched a podium back then. So a lot of these riders making highlights. Some of the more experienced riders slightly further down the grid. You've got Matteo Massoli in 14th. You've got Martin Vince alongside in the number 12 on that 5th row of the grid. Two riders who have had podiums in the class. Vince has also had a win, who have been very competitive in the past and have started their season on the back foot. So a lot of things to go through in this build up to the race. We are 4 minutes away from these riders actually starting their warm-up lap. But this is T.S. Wenzel on pole position in his very first NTC ride outing. One of several promising debutants vying for the title in this season of change. His lap of 155.283 put Wenzel 0.2 of a second clear of his teammate. That was the first pole position for the former Moto2 World Champions, Kiefer Racing.
Yeah, good effort from the Kiefer Racing squad, and Binder up there in the front row with him. And that's the important thing for the team, to be able to have that consistency across two riders.
Second on the grid is 15-year-old Alessandro Binder, coming in from racing in the Mini GP World Series in Italy. The step up to a 250 Honda has not faced the young Swiss rider.
There's the rain, and if you think back to last year here in Assen, it was something similar, and we had the Pomara brothers able to come through with the race victories, and Levin able to win race one in very tricky conditions by a big margin. And now you look at these conditions, and they're deteriorating quickly for these Northern Talent Cup riders.
Third on the grid is Tobias Kitzblicker, the Austrian rider. The number 38, that distinction does come with an asterisk. As I said before, he did participate in the final round of 2023 as a wildcard finish on the podium, and just 23 thousandths away, the second away from a win to complete that target today. Yeah,
that was at Hockenheim, and very impressive performance to jump in and be able to do that in the Talent Cup. Everyone's out there on the same bikes, and it means that talent should come to the fore in a championship like this.
See our second row of the grid now, and lead in that second row is a first familiar race for regular Northern Talent Cup viewers. Jurian van Krugten, star rookie of the 2022 season, who last season did struggle with 3 DNFs and a broken collarbone, derailing his challenge early in 2023. Yesterday he finished just 400ths of a second of a front row start and will be willing to please the home crowds.
Yeah, he's had 4 podiums in the Northern Talent Cup, so we know that when he's at the front of the field, he's able to get good results. But it is a challenge to keep yourself up at the front in a class like this, and I think that's one of the challenges he's faced. He was a podium man here at Assen the last 2 years, though.
This man will be relishing the conditions, as Steve said, because Levin Pomara took his first and, as far as today, only win in the Northern Talent Cup in race 1 here at Assen in wet conditions last season. Even though he never hit those heights again during the season, improved performances across the board compared to his rookie year. I've left him in quite a good position to be able to take over from his older brother Lennox, who was a runner-up in the 2023 season.
Yeah, and for 11, it's one of those situations. It's the only podium he's had, but he's turned around from being a guy that was not really in the points in his first year to a top 10 runner last year, and now into your 3rd season in the Northern Talent Cup. This is when you really do need to prove yourself and what you're able to do.
In the second row of the grid is another rookie, Tom Rowland, the youngest rider on this 2024 Northern Talent Cup grid. A rider born and raised in Namur, close to the French border. So these riders now waiting to start the warm-up lap. We have a couple of riders at the back of the grid waving with the rainy conditions, but it seems like this warm-up lap will get underway in a few seconds' time. This is your grid once again for race 1 of the Northern Talent Cup, and the race to succeed Soma Gorba, Jakob Gurecki, Rossi Moore and Rocco Sessler begins today. 4 different riders have won this cup in 4 different years. Who will become the 5th winner in these 5 years. All the riders that have preceded, a lot of them, and the Lennox Pomara last season. Other riders have gone into international competitions like the Red Bull Rookies, the Junior GP Championship. This is a true launch pad for these riders, so it's important to get a good early start for these riders. And you still see a couple of them calling off to the marshals on the side of the grid, and I think we may have a slight delay here. Yeah, for those riders on the grid, they'll be wheeled off into pit lane, but it is a case of trying to figure out what you can do if you're the race steward. So you can see now that the riders are just going to be told there is a delay on the start caused by all of this. You can see that things have been left on the grid as well, so there's
little bit of a delay now, and everyone will switch their engines off. You can see for everyone on the grid now, it just creates a little bit more tension for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of those things that can happen in the first start of the season for teams and riders alike. A lot of these compete in international competition for the very first time, so there's a few things which sometimes can get a little bit out of hand in these early stages, and things which will need to be ironed out as the season rolls on.
Yeah, you can see a few riders overheating, a few bikes overheating down there as well, and they'll just have to wait a few moments now, and we'll be able to get confirmation on when we'll be able to get this start to the race. So we'll have it reduced from a 14-lap race, probably reduced by a lap to 13 now as well, once we're able to get confirmation. But you can see there are a lot of bikes with some steam coming off them there as well as they start to overheat on the grid. With these air-cooled bikes, you need to be out there running to be able to keep them cool.
So we saw, yeah, some of that steam coming out from rider number 85, Alessandro Binder. Before that, we saw at the back of the grid is number 22, Alexander Weissel, with similar problems. So a bit of an accidental start to this NT season, quite similar to what we had last year, to be honest. When we came here to the TT Circuit Assen for the very first race of the season, we had two riders crashing out on the sighting lap and a 25-minute delay with the rain starting then. So one of these things that occasionally happens at the start of the season. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait a little bit longer for the first action of the season to come on. And the nerves will start to kick in for some of these riders as well. They've been waiting for this moment for several months. The entry list came in January. They've known they're going to be racing here. They had the test at the Oschersleben. They've been able to really set themselves into this role and into their first races on an international scene. And it is a TT Circuit Assen. A lot of these riders will be watching races here since before they were born. Well, before they started
That's
walking.
impressive,
Not
Anthony.
before they were born. Before they started walking, at the very least. And to come to this moment, you're already nervous, and to have to wait those 5-10 extra minutes for this to start.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where for the riders out there, they know that this can happen, but in the heat of the moment, it's still difficult to deal with. And that's where the team and their experience really helps to try and keep a cool head. You can see there the pole sitter down there, Wenzel, and for the Kiefer Racing squad, they've been there, done that in the past. They've won world championships in Moto 2, Moto 3. They know what it takes to be successful. And the biggest thing it takes to be successful in racing is a cool head in moments like this. And they'll just make sure that their riders are able to keep things calm and then get ready for when we have this race to start. So at the moment, what's happening down there is the teams are now being told by the race director and the stewards exactly what's going to happen, and we'll be given a notification as to when we'll be able to get this race underway. And you can see riders now being put back onto their bikes. The timing boards at the front of the grid are now being changed around just to tell the teams and the riders how long we have until we'll be able to get underway. But everyone's now getting their bikes started. The race has been reduced to 13 laps, and looks like everyone's just ready to get going now.
A little bit more of a sprint for these riders, a little bit more of a wait while the race direction gives them confirmation that the warm-up lap will get started. The mechanics are being taken off the grid, so it seems like we'll be getting this underway very, very quickly. Just a run through the rest of the grid as we saw all those problems. Row 3 has Antoine Nativiar, Rookie of the Year in 2023. Ferre Flerakers on number 28. And Dustin Schneider, a returnee to the championship in 2020. He was third back in 2022. Left to do the IDM Supersport 300 championship last season. Finished third there as well, and was the second KTM overall in a field which is very much dominated quite often by the KTM. In fact, that series was won by a Kawasaki of Inigo Iglesias, currently racing the Supersport 300 championship. But for Schneider now to come back with all that experience, he is the oldest rider on the grid. He's one who we'll have to keep a lookout for during the race, because in these conditions, with the lack of experience for a lot of these riders, he is one of the ones who might have that little bit extra in his back pocket.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where some of the riders that have that little bit more experience, it can really pay off. And some of that experience comes from just racing in the Northern Talent Cup. Some of it comes from racing here in Assen as well. And I think what we've seen over the course of the racing so far today is just how quickly this track can dry. Obviously, with a superbike, there's a lot more water dispersed by the wet tyres than there is on a Northern Talent Cup bike. But it's also one of those situations where for these riders, they'll know that this track can dry quite quickly if it stops raining. There's a big change for them, though, with the switch to the Honda machinery for this year as well. So there's a lot of adaptation there for all of these Northern Talent Cup teams and riders.
It is a slightly smaller bike than the KTM, and speaking to people who've been following the championship in these recent weeks, they did say that it does seem to favour a couple of the lighter riders. And when you get some of the bigger riders like Martin Winter mentioned early on, starting 15th, a rider who comes in with a lot of experience, but he is one of the taller riders at 178. It can be a bit more difficult.
What's one of the big things though for these riders is when you were on the KTM and the Talent Cup, it's different than what you have in the Asia Talent Cup, the European Talent Cup, North American Talent Cup, wherever you want to look. So at least now there's uniformity there, and it means that you could jump on as a wild card in the Junior GP round supporting the Moto3 Junior World Championship on the European Talent Cup and know that you've got the bike underneath you that gives you that confidence. Pirelli tyres for this year as well as a change, but with Pirelli now supplying the tyres for obviously the Superbike paddock and the Super Sport 300 class, and then also Moto2 and Moto3, it means that across the board you've now just got that ability to transition from the Northern Talent Cup to the European Talent Cup and into other paddocks a lot easier.
That is one of the reasons why several of the rookies have been able to be competitive so quickly. T.S. Wenzel, for example, has spent 2 years racing in the Honda Talent Challenge in Germany and winning that 2022 edition. There are several other riders also in that position in recent years, racing on Honda machinery, so able to adapt very quickly on their debut here in the Northern Talent Cup. Riders lining up now on the grid. We will get a race underway in mixed conditions. Green flag is out at the back. The red flag is out at the front. A lot of these riders have never raced on the Honda or on Pirelli tyres. It is a baptism of fire at the Cathedral of Speed. Race 1 of the 2024 Northern Talent Cup is officially underway at the TT Circuit Assen, and it's an excellent start from our 2 riders on the front row of the grid. T.S. Wenzel and Alessandro Binder, they remain in 1-2, and in fact we've already got a huge gap between the riders in 3rd and 4th. A very tentative start from the riders at the back. We don't have any information on the tyres that many of them have opted for, but in any case it does seem that Wenzel, Binder and Kitzbühler are 3 riders on the front row of the grid, have built themselves in a position to open a gap this early on.
Yeah, and you can see there off the line, it looked like a very fast start from the pole setter, maybe a little bit too fast. So we'll keep an eye on that one, but everyone able to get through relatively cleanly on the run through those opening couple of corners.
Was T.S. Wenzel that little bit too eager off the line? We'll get confirmation in a few moments' time for race direction, but for the moment he already has a half-second advantage over his teammate.
I think he might have judged it just to perfection, but he was just better than the other riders around him, and it might not have been a jump start, but good effort by him to get the jump, get the whole shot. And in these conditions, to have a clear track in front of you, clear visibility, that's critical.
One rider who had a fantastic start is Richard Ermscher, the number 95, also a rookie in the class. He jumped from 11th position up to 5th, and he is closing the gap on Jurien van Kruchten in 4th position. Our 4 start front riders on the first and second row of the grid have remained in those positions. The gaps are starting to spread out a lot now. Wenzel with a big gap over his teammate Binder, nearly 1 second as we cross the 3rd sector. He himself also has nearly a second advantage over Tobias Kitzbühler, and then it's 0.4 of a second over Ermscher, who moves into 4th position ahead of Van Kruchten and starts his pursuit of the front 3.
Yeah, and you can see these riders now all trying to jostle for position. This area of the track a lot drier than what we have in the middle of the lap, and that's always one of the big challenges here at Assen. You can find some areas of the track where you really are able to push, and other areas where you need to be a little bit more conservative.
Good start also from Anakin Zelenak up into 5th position. We'll see if he can move up any further on this start finish straight. The gaps are starting to close down a little bit on the start finish straight. On the other side of the coin, Levin Pomara, our race 1 winner from last year's, dropped all the way down to 12th position. A terrible start from the younger of the Pomara brothers. We'll see if he can climb back in the latter stage of the race as the tyres get up to heat, but complete opposite of what we saw from him in this race last year. Yeah,
and the one thing for it is these conditions, so you can see the rain has stopped now and the sun's starting to come out. There is still a lot of water out there, but the track is going to evolve very quickly out there for all these riders, so having that bit of experience could make a big difference. So keep an eye out on the 36 of Van Kruchten as well. He was Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago, and this is a massive season for him to make this step forward, try and win the Northern Talent Cup.
Anakin Zelenak looks like the rider now with the pace in these sessions. He just moved up to 4th position, number 55. Remember, the last year in race 1 here, he didn't make it past the sighting lap. He was one of 2 riders who crashed in wet conditions. We have a rider raising their hand there in the middle of the group. Not quite sure what the issue was there. That would have been number 2, Tom Rowland, one of the rookies coming in from Belgium, and he's fallen back. He started 6th position. He's down to 10th at the moment.
The conditions here at this part of the track just look so different over at turn 5. Now, obviously, some of that comes down to the camera. Sometimes it exaggerates or makes it look a little bit worse than it is. But in this area of the track, this is where we have tended to see the rain just stay there an awful lot longer than at the opening half of the track. The southern half versus the northern half here at Assen.
And we have had confirmation on our time screens that there were no jump starts there. So TS Wenzel did time that to perfection, as you mentioned, Steve.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those situations that he went before everyone else, but everyone else was just a little bit delayed. Super start from Wenzel. He's given himself a good lead here. 2.5 seconds at the end of the opening lap.
Anakin Zelenak up to 3rd position. A look at how the rain is falling down there. These conditions are going to get even more difficult for these riders.
It just changes so quickly here in Assen this weekend. We're obviously the middle of April in Northern Europe. You're close to the North Sea. The weather just comes in very quickly, and certainly for all of these riders in the Northern Talent Cup, they've been waiting until 4:30 in the afternoon for their chance to get back out on track, and then they're in conditions like this. It's so tricky out there for them.
And it's exceptionally cold. Track temperature is 17 degrees, but the air temperature is 8.4 degrees Celsius here. And the feeling is even colder with that, with the wind, with the rain for these riders, even in their suit. It's an extraordinary difficult race to racing. And from what they've seen all day here, they know that it can evolve in so many ways. So riders like Wenzel at the front can't really, they need to stay focused the whole race.
Good move being made there as well. It looked like it was by the 36 there of Van Kruten, and exactly what he has to do at this point of the race. Get some progress, because at the front of the field, Wenzel and Binder, the Kiefer Racing bikes, they're in a position to really go away from everyone else. So if you're Van Kruten and you know that you've got the chance of being competitive this year, you've got to go with them. You've got to give yourself that chance. And that's Van Kruten.
Crash. I think that was Zelenak on number 55.
It was.
Anakin Zelenak from a podium position out of this race. What a shame for the 2023 rookie. He was having his best performance so far by a long mile in the Northern Talent Cup, but he is officially out of this race, and we're going to get a replay of that now, Steve.
Yeah, and you can just see that the rear is just going to come around him. He's the rider at the left of the shot, and yeah, he's just trying to ask a little bit too much of it in these conditions. And that section of the track is always one place where we do tend to see, even for the experienced Superbike and MotoGP riders, you just ask that little bit too much too soon, and you can have a big crash like that. So a big shame, but the good news is you'll be able to get back in action tomorrow at least.
And that will serve as a warning for the riders that were behind. Everybody outside of the 2 Kiefer Racing riders saw that crash happen. They know what can happen if you push a little bit too much in these stages of the race and in these changing conditions.
Fastest rider on the track is Van Kruten there in the number 36 machine. He's come through in Schneider as well. He was only 1/10 of a second faster than the race leader, but he was faster, and that's what's going to be the big thing for him. Come through this group, give yourself the chance of being able to fight it out for a podium or even a race win.
It'll give him the confidence as he leads this small group of 4 riders in the battle for 5th position. At the back of that group, Antoine Nativi trying to do everything he can to get around Ferre Flerakers, and he does move ahead him on the back straight. The number 27, the Frenchman who was Rookie of the Year last year, got a couple of podiums along the way, and is one of the riders looking to make a step forward in these early stages of the competition. Van Kruten now has left these riders behind, and he is firmly on the back of Richard Ermsche. He's only 0.3 of a second behind the German rider, and I think he'll catch him very, very soon.
Yeah, he's not going to be hanging around to come through in him as well. The 36 with the orange flashes on the front fairing, and definitely the guy to keep an eye on. And this is the section of the track where a lap ago we saw the crash for Zelenak. Everyone able to come through pretty cleanly on this run, but it is tricky through that section of the racetrack.
Meanwhile, leader TS Wenzel 2.5 seconds now ahead of his teammate Alessandro Binder. Binder is keeping the gap pretty steady with Tobias Kitzbichler behind, but not able to get close to his teammate, and that is allowing the number 17, the protege of a certain Stefan Bradl, to be able to move forward and potentially win his first race in the Northern Talent Cup as a rookie. Meanwhile, we see Van Kruten making big strides there, going into the GT chicane, and he moves up to 4th position. And now it's just Kitzbühel next for him.
It's still the fastest rider on track last time around was Van Kruten on that number 36 machine. So even with overtaking these riders, he's still fast. It's only by 1/10 of a second each of the last 2 laps compared to Wenzel out in front, but he is faster.
You know who's faster at this point? Levin Pomara, the number 53, finally finding his strides after a terrible start of the race. He is now up to 9th position and is the only rider currently in the 154.
Yeah, and good spot that as well, Anthony. And down in there, 9th position, he needs to make that progress. He's just at the back of that group, and Pomara on that pink and purple bike. It's an opportunity for him to pick up some decent points today, but he needs to just get through this group, and it's a big group of riders to come through on. Assen's not quite like what you see in some of the other circuits for the Talent Cups. Obviously, the run down into the chicane at the end of the lap is a key overtaking opportunity, but in wet conditions, it's just down to confidence rather than the slipstream battles that we typically see through the course of a season.
Richard Ermshire losing out now in this battle for 5th. He's been overtaken by Dustin Schneider, number 20, returning to this cup this season, and by Antoine Nativi. They're up to 5th and 6th position now, and will try to follow Van Kruten, who is now checked out. He's 4/10 of a second away. If they keep battling amongst themselves, they'll leave the Dutchman to be able to follow Kitzbühel in that battle for the podium. So all these riders 3, 4, 10 seconds of 10th of a second away from each other. Actually, the gap between Kitzbühel and Van Kruten has now dropped, between Kitzbühel and Binder, has dropped to below 1 second now. So it seems like the number 85 might be losing out a bit at this stage of the race.
Yeah, Binder just going to come under increased pressure at this stage, and for Alessandro, it's going to be important to see how he deals with that. As they come across the line, let's see what Wenzel's time is out in front. A new fastest lap of the race at 54.7, and then we've got a few other riders that are a little bit faster than him. You can see there in the time tower on the left-hand side of the screen. So we've got plenty of riders now going with fast lap times. It's just bringing that top 6 a little bit closer together. We're only at 1/3 race distance here. We've still got 8 laps to go, so plenty of time to be able to claw back some of that margin.
Well, the key for Wenzel is there are a couple of riders slightly faster than him, but not fast enough at this stage of the race. That gap with Alessandro Binder has moved up to 3 seconds.
Yeah, but the one thing for him is he's after seeing a superbike race where the lead was getting slashed throughout, a super sport race where that happened as well, and now he's the rider out in front being chased down.
A slow motion shot from a couple of riders behind Vladimir Melgren, Swedish rider making his debut, and Ben Wigner, who was our fastest rider in testing at the Oschersleben, but it hasn't gone quite right for him in these sort of wet conditions. He's down now in 14th. We return now to this battle for 2nd position, and they're starting to close in on Binder.
It really is closing up now for Binder. He's under pressure now, and you'd imagine the run down into the chicane, some of these riders might well be thinking that's the opportunity to make the move, and certainly if you're Van Kruten, that's what you have to think about to give yourself that chance to be able to still win this race. Last time around, it was Nativi on the number 27 bike that was the fastest rider on the track.
These battle for the podium positions still continue. Binder starting to get slightly nervous at the riders that are starting to approach him behind. Kitzbühel remains in 3rd position. He's remained in that 3rd position most of the race. It was only when Zelenak overtook him where it seemed like he was in a bit of a dangerous position. Of course, then the number 55 crashing out a few laps ago. Van Kruten also remaining in 4th position, but that could all change very quickly as we see another move here from Antoine Nativi. Actually, it's Dustin Schneider. Sorry, it was Nativi moving there in that battle for the top 5 with Schneider.
Yeah, and good move being made into the chicane there. Last time around, 55.1 from the race leader, and Fleeracker's down in 7th position. He was actually 6/10 of a second faster as well. So all of those riders closing up.
We have a crash from number 95.
That's Ermshire that's gone down. It looks like it's at the last corner maybe there for Richard to have gone down.
Oh, unfortunate for number 95. He had an extra start to the race. It was going south in the last few laps, but we've seen things can change very quickly here in Assen.
Yeah, he'd been running up there in that battle in round about 8th position in front of Pomara, and yeah, that's unfortunate for him, but at the very least you're able to come back tomorrow, and that's the beauty of the NTCs. 2 races this weekend for these riders, 2 chances to be able to impress everyone.
You mentioned how quickly things can change here in Assen, Steve. Wenzel, the last few laps there are a couple of riders.
Oh, that's Binder, and Binder's missed a shift there, or something's gone wrong, because he was just a sitting duck at that stage. Was that?
He's back on the pace now. It was Binder, number 95. Remember, 835, sorry. Yeah. Binder, Alessandro Binder. He moves now back into 5th position behind Antoine Nativi. and he does seem to be back up to pace, but that is a whole second loss to the riders behind. And now it's Van Krugten has also moved ahead of Kitzbühel. With all of that chaos, the number 36, a home hero, is now the rider leading that pursuit of T.S. Wenzel.
Yeah, I got a bit confused. I actually thought it might have been Wenzel that had a bit of an issue there. And you can see the 38 there, Kitzbühel. The reason he's spreading his legs out like that is he wants to just create a little bit more drag. He doesn't want to leave it where he's leading this group. He wants to just be able to...
Oh, we have a red flag,
Red flag is out. We're at half race distance, so we're not at 2/3 race distance. So we'll have this race restarted afterwards. I wonder what's brought out that red flag. We did see the Ermshire crash earlier on when Richard came off at turn 1, but the unusual for that to cause the red flag here. So we'll wait and see what the issue is.
Still no confirmation of that. We'll try to offer that as soon as we can to Northern Talent Cup viewers. But for the time being, we do have a red flag. And that is a shame for T.S. Wenzel in particular, because he had a 3.3 second gap with seven laps to go. And what will be going through his mind? I think this is Richard Ermshire we're seeing now getting walked off by the medical staff.
Yeah, and hopefully Richard's okay. You can see they're just being taken away by them. And obviously we'll wait and see if we can get a replay of it. It was actually a big incident there for him as well, and a little bit of an egg beater there for Richard, so good to see that he was able to walk away from that. He must have lost that very early on the entry into the first corner, and the problem with the wet conditions is when you crash in the wet conditions, there's no friction to slow you down. You almost feel like you're accelerating towards the accident compared to where it is in dry conditions, where you could crash and suddenly when you hit the asphalt or you run over the gravel trap or the grass, there's a little bit of friction there to try and reduce your speed. In the wet, it's just slick, and it's easy to have a crash that's then even bigger in the aftermath. So hopefully Richard's okay for that and able to take the start tomorrow.
Unfortunate for the number 95, but we did see him back on his feet, which is the best news at this stage, and hopefully he'll be ready to race tomorrow in race 2 at the TT Circuit Assen. Meanwhile, these riders now will ride back into pit lane, and we'll try and give you any information on the new schedule as soon as we can, but it will be the current results that we had at that point will be the starting grid for the restart of this race, with Wenzel, Van Krugten and Tobias Kitzbühel. The big loser in all of that was Alessandro Binder in that battle that we saw a few moments ago, in potentially missing a gear at that point and dropping from 2nd to 5th. But this restart will give him in particular an opportunity to refocus and get his mind back into it, because his race was just as good as his teammate. For those riders, obviously the big thing now is that they're able to just come back into the pits, and we should have this scheduled in, I'd imagine, as a 5-lap race at the end of it, and the grid will be set by the positions as they are right now. So for Wenzel, Binder and Kitzbühel, it'll be on the front row of the grid. I think actually due to Northern Talent Cup regulations here, it is the previous lap, not the time completed sector, it is a previous lap which is taken into account for these riders in the event of a restart, which is different regulation to what we usually have in the World Superbike paddock. So I think actually, given the names that we have on our monitors right now, that Binder, who was overtaken just before the red flag that we saw, Binder will actually start from 2nd position. It'll be Kitzbühel in 3rd position. So it'll be the same front row that we had at the start of this race, the original start of this race. So lucky for the number 85 as everything happened.
Yeah, good thinking, Hans. Of course, we're running Grand Prix rules here, so back to the previous lap, and when everyone had completed that one as well. So yeah, Wenzel will be on the pole, and we'll wait and see for the full schedule, but you'd imagine a 5-lap race, and then we'll be able to get underway again. So a couple of delays here for the Northern Talent Cup riders, and they did a very good job in the course of that race though to keep themselves out of trouble and have a clean battle all the way around. Obviously we had the crash for Zelenek at the start of the race, and then Richard's crash there down at turn 1, and big incident there for Ermshire, but obviously for the rest of the field now, this is a chance for them to just bring themselves back into the pack as well. For Wenzel, he had been 3 seconds clear. Suddenly, he's going to have a real battle on his hands.
And the key thing is now, at the moment, it doesn't seem to be raining out there, and it doesn't seem to be raining from our commentary booth position. So the track will continue to dry out. It has been drying out very slowly today here at Assen compared to what it was yesterday with the higher winds that we had. We had riders in the Super Sports session in particular mentioned that at the end of their race, how it's really taken a long time for the track to dry, and it gives those wet tyres a little bit more lifetime in a race. But the longer that we wait now for these riders to get going, the drier it gets, and that means a completely different strategy for a lot of these, and potentially an opportunity for some of the riders lower down on the grid, because riders like we saw Matteo Massoli, number 46, or Martin Vince, I've mentioned them a couple of times, the riders who came into this season as potential favourites. They're down in 15th and 16th position. Two riders who really aren't adapting to the new Hondas or the new Pirellis in these early stages or in these mixed conditions. There's something there which isn't quite working for those two riders. So riders like them will be able to push forward in these early stages of the restart and potentially salvage what was looking to be a pretty disastrous start to their season.
Yeah, I think it's certainly one of those things for these riders. They know that the season is a long season for the Northern Talent Cup, and it's one of those situations where you try and build yourself in to make sure that you're able to still score some decent points right from the get-go. You have 14 races through the course of the season, 7 rounds, and obviously some rounds in support of other championships. They're back here in Assen at the end of the summer as well, so 4 races here in Assen through the course of the season, and they know that it's all about trying to make sure you're able to score points all the way through. That's what we've seen all of the top guys do all the way through the NTC. Just seeing now as well that we've just been given confirmation of when pit lane will open again. So at 16:50, so just over 3 minutes time, we'll be able to get back underway. It'll be the quick restart procedure, and then, like we thought, Ant, a 5-lap race where we'll see if anyone's able to bring the fight to Wenzel as well, and upset the apple cart a little bit compared to what we saw in the initial staging.
That quick start procedure does mean the riders will be led out for one sighted lap around the track. They will quickly arrive to the grid to one mechanic, just make sure everything is okay, and then head back out for one warm-up lap before we get the 5-lap shortened race. So here's potentially one of the happiest riders on the grid there, number 85, Alessandro Binder. He will once again start from second position after a small mistake had pushed him temporarily back into 5th in the race as it was going. So all these riders taking a moment to take a bit of a breather as well and get back into focus, because they've been waiting so many hours today around the circuit, seeing all the action happen, getting those nerves really ramping up, and seeing scenes like the sky that we have right now here doesn't help with that.
Yeah, these NTC riders have been busy, because every time I've gone past them, they're all trying to just do bigger wheelies than everyone else out in their mountain bikes. So it's been a tough day up until now, and this is when at least they're able to get back racing and give themselves a chance. They'll be racing last on the card tomorrow as well, so they'll face a similar delay before they're able to get out on track tomorrow, but they're also able to spend that time being around the World Superbike paddock, and it's the one time through the year where we get the Talent Cup here, and they're able to use that time to meet a few people and see if they're able to make that bit of a step, because for a lot of these riders it's about going from the Northern Talent Cup into the junior GP classes, the European Talent Cup or anywhere else. But when you look at our paddock in the World Superbike classes, Adrian Huerta is a good example, a guy that came up through the ranks in the Spanish championships, being able to fight with a lot of top class riders. But when you get further into your career, it's harder and harder to raise the budget to do a junior GP season, and that's where these Talent Cups really do help to give them that opportunity.
And a good example of that is a rider currently in Supersport 300, Loris Veneman, who was a rookie last season. He raced in the Northern Talent Cup before that, and he was immediately a race winner in the class, and certainly his performances when he was racing in the World Superbike paddock, but in the Northern Talent Cup grid, certainly opened a few eyes there, and he found a path to a extraordinary competitive team in MTM Kawasaki, and has been one of the shining points of 2023, his performances as a rookie. There's a second rider in Philip Novotny who was on the Northern Talent Cup grid last year and has also made his debut in the class this year. So with a lot of different paths that these riders can follow, and for them to be able to race alongside these riders this weekend, at the very least is a learning opportunity, but can also be a chance to further their careers.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the whole goal for the Northern Talent Cup. You can see the road to MotoGP is a big thing with the Talent Cups, but it's the road to being a professional rider as well, and giving yourself an opportunity to build through your career. And that's where a lot of the Talent Cups, when they start out, there's a lot of 17, 18-year-olds racing them, and suddenly very quickly it becomes 14, 15-year-olds, and then moving into the European Talent Cup. And ideally what you'd like to see is riders in the British Talent Cup, the Northern Talent Cup, all coming together in the European Talent Cup, and then moving on, the top guys in that class moving on to the Moto3 Junior World Championship, and then so forth, and give yourself that progression all the way through. But there's so many riders now that are super talented that come through the Talent Cup route that it's actually quite difficult to really find the right place to progress through your career. Manuel Gonzalez is another good example of it. For Gonzo, he came through the European Talent Cup ranks, but his career kind of stalled out a little bit, and he went to the Supersport 300 class, won a world championship, went to Supersport, was able to be a podium rider, a front-running rider, and now he's getting the rewards for that in the Moto2 class, where he's challenging for podiums and challenging for race wins. And that's really what you want to see from these Talent Cups, and that progression through the ranks. It's not a linear path all the way through to a MotoGP ride. There's lots of different ways for these talented riders to find their footing and give themselves a chance to be a professional racer.
And that's where also the move to Honda machinery can help a lot of these riders, putting it in line with the other Talent Cups that we've had with other international competitions. And the move to Pirelli tyres, because you mentioned earlier in the show, Steve, it's not just the World Superbike paddock which races now on Pirellis, it's the other Talent Cups, it's Junior GP, it's Moto2, it's Moto3. So that already gives them a platform to be that slightly bit more competitive when they do make the switch to another championship.
Yeah, exactly. And just when you look at how quickly things can change, obviously the change to manufacturer, the change to Pirelli tyres, it adapts an awful lot for what these riders have to do. Look at the change of the track right now as well. They've had 10 minutes sitting in pit lane. This looks like a totally different racetrack now. You can see the dry line that's developed out there. And suddenly for all these riders, what they've been gearing up to and what they've been doing for the first 6-7 laps of the initial staging of this race, it's irrelevant. You come out now, the starting grid is set, and now you've got a brand new race and you've got to go out there and try and win it. But you're out there on a bone dry track in some places now, it looks like, and then patches in others. This is what we love to see, and I'm not too sure if I'm a team manager down there or a rider on the grid that I'd be as excited about it.
Well, I said before the show, this might be the most unpredictable race of even the whole weekend, given how they're coming in, all the different changes we've had to the championship, the riders, the rookies and everything. These conditions just add to all of that and add to that excitement. But these riders haven't given that sighting lap. You know that some of them will be more confident after doing that sighting lap and seeing the conditions that they've chosen the right strategy. You also know that some of them, that little doubt will have crept into their mind ahead of this restart. We're seeing the new starting grid there, same front four that we had in the original start. One of the riders who's gained the most positions in all of this is Dustin Schneider. He originally started down in 9th position. He's now up to 5th for the restart. Antoine Nativi also making some ground there. One of the bigger losers, Levin Pomara, who was 5th on the original grid, up to down to 8th position. Get one notification on our timing screen. Number 2 of Tom Rowland is being moved to pit lane, so coming into some issues there. He was supposed to start in 9th position for this restart, but if he does make it to the warm-up lap, he will start at the back of the grid. That warm-up lap has started now, and the final assessment of these conditions for these riders before we get into racing, it will be a 5-lap sprint.
Who's going to find that bit of confidence? Who's going to find that little bit more that they need now to go with Wenzel? We saw on the initial stage of the race that Wenzel made a super getaway, and if anyone wants to go with him, they've got to get off the line better than they did in the initial race.
Yeah, that front three really spread out in the first 2 sectors of this race, and it really conditioned how the rest of the riders approached it. They were certainly the bravest in the restart, starting from that front position. Of course, they didn't have anybody in front of them really to see where things were working or things weren't working, so you really needed that courage to be able to go forward, and they certainly did in the early stages. So there's 20 riders for this restart. Of course, Zelenak and Ermscher both missing after their crashes. A small mention for 2 riders who didn't make it to the grid but were in the sessions yesterday. Delano Greven and Kiana Shu, 2 Dutch riders, the number 31 and the number 16, missing from today's action and tomorrow's race, unfortunately, due to not being able to qualify for the race. So it is a 20-rider restart 5 laps around this TT circuit in Assen.
Yeah, and you can see through this section of track, this is actually where it was probably wetter than most areas of the racetrack earlier on, but now you've got that clear dry line developing. The reason for that is the camera doesn't show it, but this section is very heavily cambered, and you're really able to take advantage of that through there. Through this section of track, though, you can see how shiny the track is, so clearly wet in a lot of places. But the sections of the track that have the dry line, you can see where the bikes are right now. So there is a narrow, dry line out there that everyone's going to want to try and keep themselves as close to as possible as they make their way through to the end of the lap. That is the number 2 of Tom Rowland, and he gets ready to start from pit lane. Big shame for Tom there in a 5-lap race. It's a massive penalty to start from pit lane.
Unfortunately for him, coming into this race as a rookie, as many have in this first Northern Talent Cup race of the season. He had originally qualified 6th, youngest rider of the grid, while getting a big dose of learning experience here at the start of his career in the Northern Talent Cup, but certainly better things to come in the future. So our pole sitter Thias Wenzel lining up. There's a green flag at the back of the grid. We are ready to get racing again at the TT circuit Assen. Lights are on, and the 5-lap restart is on here at the Cathedral of Speed. And once again, the 2 Kiefer Racing boys have made a sensational start. Alessandro Binder this time going alongside his teammate Thias Wenzel, and Binder actually will grab the race lead from Wenzel. Wenzel will try to counter back as we come through turn 2. They're assessing their lines here very carefully, but for the moment it is still a Kiefer Racing 1-2, but the number 85 is the rider now who takes that whole shot, the Swiss rider, as we come through turn 5. But Thias Wenzel slices down the inside of his teammate. It's only 5 laps, so they have to get rolling as soon as possible, all these riders, and that's given Jurien van Kruchten, the local rider, the number 38, the opportunity to latch onto the back of them 2 down this back straight. And it might be Binder as we come through turn 6, turn 5. A big gap has been opened between our top 3 now.
Yeah, it looked like there was a really bad start from the second row of the grid. I think it was Van Kruchten on the number 36 machine, and he's dropped all the way down the order. You can see at the front of the field, it's the 38 of Kitzblecker that's given himself that opportunity now to really get in there with the Kiefer bikes and see if he's able to go with the number 17 at the front, Wenzel. So we'll see if the 38 is able to come through into P2 in the next couple of corners.
Apologies to local fans, my eyes did deceive me there. It is Kitzblecker who now slices his way into second position, doesn't quite make it, but he is firmly on the back of Binder as Wenzel now opens a gap for the lead. So after a slightly tentative start from the number 17, certainly a worse start than he had in the original race, he has now moved back into first position and is starting to open a gap.
I think the big thing was everyone else made much better starts than what we saw in the initial stage, but for Wenzel, he's up there where he needs to be. Let's see what happens in this lead group, though. At the back of the group is Pomara, race winner here in Assen last year, and now in the fight. He wasn't going to be in the initial stage of the race, but the 53 is right there.
Oh, and Dustin Schneider coming very close to our leader there. He was 4th as we came through that final sector, moved up to 3rd, then up to 2nd, and now is on the back of our race leader, Thias Wenzel. He holds firm as we come to turn 1, and actually Alessandro Binder is going to move ahead of Dustin Schneider, maybe not getting the best drive as he went around the GT chicane. But it is still a Kiefer Racing 1-2 now with 4 laps to go.
Yeah, and for Wenzel, he's been the front runner all the way through the racing so far today, but in the initial stage he was up by 3 seconds. Now he's in a battle, and this is where we get to see what kind of a rider he is for a scrap like that. Schneider's been able to come through there into P2, and that's what he needed to do on the number 20 machine.
Schneider driving up the inside of Binder there through turn 5, but the number 85 does get the better of him on the back straight. Seems like he has a little bit more acceleration coming out of that corner than the rest. It is Binder still in second position, Schneider in third, and Antoine Nativi just behind.
Yeah, and Nativi on that number 27 machine, definitely the guy to keep an eye on, because he's always been able to put his bike in a position to try and make some moves. And you can see Pomara there running right out onto the curb there, trying to move himself up into the podium positions.
Start diametrically opposite the one he had in the original start. He dropped them from 5th to 11th. Now he's jumped up from 8th to 4th position. To 3rd position now, actually. 4th position still for the number 53, the younger of the Pomara brothers. But it will be 3rd position as we go into the final sector of the TT Circuit Assen.
3 laps to go. Don't sleep on Van Kruten there in the number 36. He's recovered from 12th position after the bad start. He's up into P7 and in the middle of this group.
There you have him at the back of the shot. Small gap to the riders in that battle for 2nd position. 4 riders, Binder, Nativi, Pomara, Kitzbichler, all fighting amongst themselves through this final sector. Maybe thinking about what they can do in a certain final lap battle. If things are still the same, it will be 3 laps to go when we cross the finish line.
Yeah, and you can see there at the front of the field, Wenzel had opened up a margin of over a second at one point there, but everyone else trying to just go with him, close him down a little bit. But it's Van Kruten that's the fastest rider out there. The orange flashes have moved up into P4 now in the 36. He still thinks he can have a chance to win this race.
Oh, 11 Pomara, they're holding firm as Van Kruten tries, sorry, not Van Kruten, rider behind, try to come through. I think that must be Dustin Schneider, but Pomara keeping on to that position. Thias Wenzel still holds a 7/10 of a second lead. Ooh, a rider going wide at the back behind there. Now Van Kruten moves into 2nd position.
Van Kruten can win this race. He's the guy right now that's able to make those moves. He's come from P12 up to P2. He's trying to hold on to that position from Alessandro Binder, but right now Van Kruten knows he's faster than the race leader. He's been able to see that the number 17's come back towards him. He needs to clear Binder quickly.
Van Kruten has cleared Binder here through turns 6 and 7, and now the pursuit of Thias Wenzel commences for the number 36. The question is if he'll be able to bring the rest of the group with him. Binder has stayed close to him. A small gap has developed with Nativi and Pomara for the moment.
Yeah, the big thing is who's going to try and attack Van Kruten and cost them time. If they leave Van Kruten to it, he can draw them up to the race leader.
One of the riders who has had a good restart is Matteo Massoli, now in 9th position. He is faster than the riders behind him, so we'll see if he can close that gap down. But it is only 3 laps, less than 3 laps now, as we come through the 3rd sector to the end of this race. So not a big advantage that will be able to be gained in these closing stages. But Van Kruten, as you can see now, is just 3/10 of a second behind Wenzel. In that 2nd sector was really where he gained a big advantage over the number 17.
Yeah, and Pomara is just crawling all over the back wheel of everyone out there. The pink bike at the end of this group in P5 right now, but he's the guy who really does look like he's getting impatient, wants to come through, knows that he doesn't want to give up the chance of winning this race, and to do that he's got to get himself through into P4 here on Binder.
78 thousandths of a second between Wenzel and Van Kruten as they cross a finish line, and now this is a 5-rider battle for the win at the TT Circuit Assen. 2 laps to go. It's Wenzel, Van Kruten, and Nativi and Pomara, and actually Binder might have made a small mistake because he's dropped off the back.
Yeah, what happened into turn 1 was Pomara swept across the front to Binder, and Binder then had to just lose a little bit of ground there. So it's these front 4 riders, and right now Van Kruten is the fastest of them, but Pomara is the one that's also trying to buzz around and give himself the chance of overtaking moves. So they're the 2 riders that are probably the ones to keep an eye on.
Van Kruten was able to bridge the gap, but he hasn't been able to pass Wenzel until now. He's going to try it down the inside of turn 6, turn 7 at the end of the back straight, and the local hero does move into 1st position. He tries to close the line as now Nativi moves ahead of Wenzel, and after leading both the original race and the restart, Wenzel is down to 3rd position.
He's about to fall off the podium as well now, because I think it looks like the 53 is going to try and follow through those other riders.
As we come through this 3rd sector for the penultimate time, the 2 right-handers of turn 10 and turn 11. Can Van Kruten open a gap? He has never won a race in the Northern Talent Cup. He was Rookie of the Year in 2022, but it all went south last year with 3 DNFs inside the opening races. But Nativi, who has also never won a race in the Northern Talent Cup, moves into the lead into the final sector. Can he hold it through as we come through the left-handers before the chicane? Levin Pomara trying to move up the inside now, Van Kruten as well, and Wenzel has a look from 4th position. We're coming on to the final lap of the first race of the season for the Northern Talent Cup.
Yeah, we've got 4 riders there in that group. There's 3 guys really fighting right now for this podium spots. Wenzel was our race leader all the way through, and he's just able to keep that watching brief. He doesn't seem to have the bike underneath him to really go with them and put his bike where it needs to be.
Van Krugten slips down the inside at turn 1, moves back into the lead. A small gap now has developed with Wenzel. It seems that after leading the whole race, he will not even feature on the podium. Certainly a learning experience for the number 17, but this battle for first position seems to be between Van Krugten, Nativi and Pomara. Nativi can't have a look down the inside, but it's here, down this back straight, where the best opportunity in this early stages of the circuit, of the final lap, will come.
Yeah, this is the section of the track where Van Kruten's been really good, but he's been good at attacking and trying to make the moves on the run down in towards the next left-hander.
Nativi gets a slipstream, but Jurien Van Krugten can cut back down the inside of turn 7. Will he hold the inside line for turn 8? It seems that Nativi tries to have a look, but can't quite get it. It still is Van Krugten, Nativi, Pomara. Pomara will start to have to make a move soon, because even though he has looked like the faster of the 3 in certain stages, he is still down in 3rd position. Nativi moves back into the lead ahead of Van Krugten. We go to the final time, to the 2 right-handers of turn 10 and turn 11.
Do you want to lead into the chicane on the last lap? It hasn't traditionally worked out well for a lot of riders, but for Nativi out in front, he's got a few bike lengths over the rest of them.
Lennox Pomara was the rider in 3rd as we face this stage in race 2 last year, and it seems like Levin Pomara will be the rider with the pace as we come through the final sector. Van Krugten tries to make a move on Nativi, but Pomara moves around the outside of Van Krugten. Can he get down the inside of Nativi? No, he can't, because Van Krugten is now going to move into 2nd, and Antoine Nativi, oh, they nearly touch behind Pomara and Van Krugten. For the meanwhile, it's going to be Antoine Nativi with his first race win in the Northern Talent Cup. The Frenchman, a rookie in 2023, is now the first championship leader of the 2024 Cup. 2nd was Van Krugten after touching the motorbike with T.S. Wenzel at the line. Actually, perhaps we're having some issues with our time in there, because there was a lot going on. For
Van Krugten, it looked like he ran out onto the green paint through the chicane on the last lap. He's able to come through across the line into P2, but we'll see what the FIM stewards have to say about that one. For Wenzel, he's up there on the podium. That's well deserved for the way that he's ridden all the way through today. I think it would have been really tough for him not to finish on the podium. Pomara put everything he had into it to try and take that race victory, and a really good effort by him. We saw he was pretty annoyed as he came across the line, having missed out on the podium, but I think for Levin Pomara, that is at least a return to form for him and kind of what is expected of him this season.
Yeah, full credit to T.S. Wenzel in 3rd position, because on that final lap, I basically said that his options of a podium had basically been blown away with the gap that had opened to the top 3, but he came through fantastically in the final stages, and that will be at the very least a 3rd position. As you mentioned correctly, Steve, a lot going on in the final stages there, and we'll see what happens with Van Krugten touching that green paint there at the chicane. But for the moment, it is Nativi, Van Krugten and Wenzel, with Levin Pomara down in 4th, a big loser of that battle in the final stages.
Yeah, and I think obviously in a race like this that gets shortened down to 5 laps, it's difficult for the riders. You're put into a really tough position of having to be very aggressive to keep yourself out there. The track conditions changed a lot compared to where they were an hour ago when these guys rolled down pit lane, so very difficult set of circumstances for the Northern Talent Cup riders.
Well, for Van Krugten, if it is confirmed that it is a podium for him, it will be a return to form for the number 36. He was on the podium in the first race of the 2023 season in wet conditions, but after that 3 DNFs really derailed his season. He had a broken collarbone. A lot of difficulties for him, but we're going to see, I think, the replay. Well, this isn't yet the rundown to the start finish straight. This is some replays from our final lap.
Well, this is the move that took the race lead for Nativi on the rundown in towards turn 9 there. Good clean move by him, but you can see here through the exit of the last corner, Van Krugten, I think he touched the green paint, and then he also comes across the line of everyone else. It's a tricky one. We'll wait and see if we get a better replay of Van Krugten there as well, and what gets decided upon there. But I wouldn't be too surprised if there was to be a change of position there.
Yeah, it did seem to me they went pretty wide, and even in that shot that we saw him there cutting across Wenzel there, it did seem that he probably had gone a little bit too wide on the final stages of that chicane, but we'll get confirmation soon enough from race direction.
Just to add to it once again today, it's just started to rain now as well, right at the end of this one, and it is the challenge of Assen for all of these classes. It doesn't matter if it's the Northern Talent Cup or the World Superbike Riders, they're all being affected by the same things.
Well, Levin Pomara now getting pushed down pit fourth position. It's come at the right time for him. Luckily, it didn't happen any sooner.
Yeah, you can see there just kissing the crowd and waving to them. So Levin, bit of a showman there at the start of the season.
So it seems like riders will get taken to pit lane. It does seem like it will be Natalie Wenzel and Van Krugten. We've had no further notifications from race direction. Just to mention on the riders further down the field, it was 5th position in the end for Tobias Kitzbichler on his debut as a full-time Northern Talent Cup rider. Alessandra Binder in that restart, not quite getting the opportunity to fight for the podium. And in fact, we've just received confirmation now that Van Krugten has been demoted by 1 position due to exceeding track limits there, you saw on the inside of turn 17. So it will be Natalie Wenzel and Van Krugten. That is the order of your podium trio, and that is confirmed right now from stewards.
Yeah, not that much of a surprise after what we saw through that final chicane. So for Van Krugten, it's a shame to miss out in that spot, but for Wenzel is going to move him up a spot in the order. And you can see there for the 53 of Pomara as well, that's where it becomes really difficult for him, because he's been half bundled out of the way by a rider that then exceeds track limits and still doesn't get on the podium. So it's a tough one there for the stewards.
I think in the event 11 Pomara finishes on the podium ahead of Wenzel, I think perhaps they may be been slightly more lenient from Van Krugten. But as it happened, really Pomara was the biggest loser out of that situation.
Yeah, you can see there as well, though, for Levin, he's trying to dish it out as well. It's one of those things where both riders just trying to push on, and you can see they're just running out onto the green paint there for Van Krugten. But good battle, and they're going to have a good reason to fight with each other again tomorrow.
Going to get to do it all over once again for 14 laps around this TT circuit. Assen will have to wait all day again, because the race will be once again at 4:20 p.m. local time for race 2. So we're just waiting for the riders now to get taken into park for May, and here we go. We've got their confirmation and they're getting led in. And there's Julian Van Krugten. He'll still be pleased with that podium after all he went through in the 2023 season. So to be able to start this one on the front foot, ahead of his home crowd, I beg your pardon, will certainly be a positive for the number 36. One of the other riders also coming into pit lane shortly. Still a few fans left around this TT circuit. Assen, those who have braved the weather all day. It's been terribly cold all weekend here. So kudos to all of them for sticking around right to the end to be able to see these Northern Talent Cup riders in there. For many of them, their debut in the class, it certainly is the case for number 17, Tias Wenzel. Well, magnificent day and magnificent start for the season to this man, Antoine Nativi, the number 27, the first French rider to ride in the Northern Talent Cup, is now the first French rider to win a race in the Northern Talent Cup, and certainly looking as one of the riders who can be the favourites to fill in that gap from the top riders who left the class this season. There are your confirmed results on the bottom of the screen. A few riders we haven't mentioned much about, given the battle that we had at the front. Ferro Flerakers finishes in 7th position at 28, also debuted in the class. Matteo Massoli actually did gain a few positions in the end, up to 8th position, so more performance, perhaps more akin to what we're accustomed to from the number 46. He'll try to gain further ground tomorrow, and Dustin Schneider dropping down to 9th position, and number 20 in those final stages. Yeah,
and easy to lose a few spots in those final laps, especially whenever it's only a 5-lap race in difficult conditions, and that's where tomorrow becomes really interesting. The weather forecast for tomorrow was always a bit better than Saturday as well, so hopefully for the NTC riders to finish off tomorrow's racing, we'll be able to have dry weather out there and a real battle to see what everyone's level is for sheer speed, because this is only round 1 of 7, 2 races each weekend, and for these riders to be back in action at Sachsenring next, and the season really does ramp up, and you're going to Grand Prix race tracks, you're going to good places to be able to get a good feel for what the level is of these NTC riders, and that's what the goal is in all of these Talent Cup competitions.
Quick word on Tom Ronan, number 2, who we saw at the beginning of the restart getting taken into pit lane. He did eventually take part in the race, finishing in 18th position, so at the very least get some experience in his first race in the Northern Talent Cup. Here are the full, final and confirmed results from that first race of the season. Well, what a chaotic one it was, but it was Anton NTC in all of that chaos who prevailed, getting his first race win of the Northern Talent Cup of his career, in fact. TS Wenzel in second, and Jurian van Kruchten after that penalty dropping down to 3rd position. Here's the Riders' Championship. Same result as the race results. So that top 9, the first top 9 in the race. We'll look further down now for the riders outside of it. See a couple of the riders who didn't get quite a glimpse of during the race. We have Ben Vigner actually down in 10th position, our fastest rider at the Oshkosh 11 test a few weeks ago. He finished 10th, actually gained grad in the latter stages. Tom Coyle also finishing in 11th, the local rider, and Valdemar Melgren on his debut in the class, as well as Zoltan Kovac, Swam Imprin as well. All 3 rookies getting their first points in the Northern Talent Cup. Martin Vincer on the Hungarian rider on the number 12, finishing the point scoring positions. We wait for our podium trio to climb up and receive their first trophies of the season. So as you can see at the bottom of your screen, quite a fair crowd here at the TT Circuit Assen in these conditions. But they'll be pleased to see this man step onto the rostrum once again. Jurian van Kruchten, number 36, takes 3rd position after that penalty. He's still pleased about that first result of the season. Then TS Wenzel, after leading most of the race, he will remain satisfied with 2nd nonetheless on his debut in the Northern Talent Cup. And prepare to hear La Marseillaise, because there's a French rider on the top step of the rostrum. Antoine NTC, the Rookie of the Year in 2023, is your first championship leader of the 2024 season. So they will receive their trophies here. First time for Pirelli, as we mentioned, in the championship in the Northern Talent Cup. It's offering the podium trophies here to these 3 riders, getting their first experience on these tyres now. We certainly will be looking forward to more tomorrow. Second position trophy for Wenzel. He's clearly happy about that one, even given how the race started. A good start also for Kiefer Racing, joining the championship for the very first time after a couple of years in the wilderness, going from World Championship racing to racing in the IDM and now in the Northern Talent Cup. Back to form for them.
Yeah, it really is, and great to see. And the season starts strongly for these riders, and plenty of reasons to be excited for the rest of the NTC season.
So here's the national anthem on Antoine NTC.
Congratulations to the top 3. If we can ask the top 3 to come together.
So full congratulations to our top 3 riders. Our first podium trio of the season, but quite a few riders behind them. We'll be happy to contend for those positions tomorrow in race 2 of the Northern Talent Cup, because it all continues tomorrow on Super Sunday at the TT Circuit Assen. It will be lights out at 16:20 local time. All these riders getting a second chance to brave the conditions, hopefully slightly better than what we had today. Here are the highlights from your race. Wait for you tomorrow for more action from the Northern Talent Cup. Join us then.